Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 287, and I had two guests on this episode, Austin Antoine and Raul Herrera. Austin is the music department head at Get Lit Words Ignite, and he's a multifaceted performance artist. And Raul Herrera is the manager of programs at Get Lit, and he is a spoken word artist, playwright, and educator. Get Lit Words Ignite programs fuse classic and spoken word poetry to increase teen literacy and provide opportunities for teens through the arts. Really an exceptional program that we're going to be talking about on this episode. And bonus, Austin and Raul also read some of their own poetry. So that was very exciting for me because I am a big fan of poetry. I watched a bunch of the videos on YouTube of people from Get Lit doing their thing, and what an empowering program that these kids go through. It's really something. I can't wait for you to hear this episode. There are many people that came up through the Get Lit program that have gone on to greatness, including an artist you've probably heard of, Her. She came up through the Get Lit program, and she's a Grammy-winning performing artist. It's sensational. Get Lit has some upcoming events that I want to mention. They have monthly virtual open mics. That's pretty cool, where you can read your poetry. And then on November 14th here in Los Angeles at the Universal AMC, Get Lit's Summertime film is going to be airing, and you can get tickets for that. There'll be poetry readings before the movie, and then the movie will show. And on November 20th, Get Lit at the Promenade in Santa Monica on 3rd Street. They have a stage there, and there will be a performance night there as well. I'll put links for everything on heyhumanpodcast.com as usual. In other news, Hey Human Podcast social media is Hey Human Podcast and can be found on Instagram and Facebook. Email me, Susan, at heyhumanpodcast.com. If you want to check out my music, you can do so on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you like to listen to music, and you'll find it under Susan Ruth. As I mentioned before, there's a links page on heyhumanpodcast.com where I put tons and tons of information for every guest on the show. And you can find it there and dig in deep into the internets and find all sorts of fun things or interesting things. If you want to get on the mailing list, go to susanruth.com. You'll also find more information about me and interviews with me and things like that. On the heyhumanpodcast.com site, there is a merch page where you can find all sorts of merchy things like t-shirts and pencils and leggings and that kind of stuff. Definitely check that out. Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It's super helpful. I really appreciate it. And I think that's about it. I'm excited to get into this episode. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, be well, be kind. And here we go. Austin Antoine, Raul Herrera, welcome to Hey Human.
I'm so happy to be here.
Good to have you both here. It's exciting for me. This having multi-screens. That tells you how exciting my life is that excites me.
No, I love multi-screens too. Sometimes I'm watching TV and on my phone at the same time. Sometimes, I love it. It's accessibility. It's showing yourself that you can multitask. I love it.
It's an ADD world.
Yeah, TV, phone, it's the trifecta. TV, phone, computer. It just, you can run through the cycle.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Well, welcome you guys, and thank you for being here. You represent Get Lit. First, let's talk about what it is.
Yeah, fantastic. So Get Lit Words Ignite is a nonprofit based in Los Angeles that aims to increase teen literacy and also just teen opportunities through the arts. And this comes in the form of poetry, literature. This comes in the form of creative media like filmmaking and script writing and things like that. So it's just an organization that's really just trying to get students excited about learning about themselves, learning the world of poetry, but also most importantly, being empowered by their own personal narratives. And so this is an organization that's, been standing for 15, going on 16 years, an organization that I've been a part of for 10 of those years. And I'm just really, really excited to be working with them still. And in Austin, I know feels the same way. He's been here for a long time, and, he still works with Get Lit, and it's just a great space to be in.
Yeah, Raul is a person that went through the Get Lit process. I came in as an outsider, not only as an outsider to being a teacher or facilitator, things like that, but also an outsider to being a poet in general. And I was welcomed with, I was embraced with very wide open arms. And now for the past 4 or 5 years, I not only feel like a poet, but I feel like a person that can extend the dopeness that is poetry to anybody that wants to learn about it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of poetry. It's exciting to know. So this is in Los Angeles. Is it also nationwide and just, okay.
Yeah, so the whole thing about Get Lit is we have a curriculum that we, sell to schools. And so this curriculum, you can license it for a year. You can have a teaching artist teach it at your school for 12 weeks, things like that. And so with the curriculum being something that's transportable, you don't necessarily need a teaching artist or someone from Get Lit to be there. This curriculum can really expand anywhere or reach anywhere. We've had students from Trinidad, students from Hong Kong, Brazil, India, and schools from all over the world, really adapting what we've created, which is a model that allows students to not only find out about the past and relate to people from the past, but also it gives them a place to put themselves in. People felt like that before. You feel like that now. Look at that connection and look at that conversation, and what can you do to further that conversation?
Do you get a lot of teens coming in who, I think about teenagers that they're already trying to figure out who they are as separate from their families and maybe their churches or their schools or whatever, their friends. And a lot of times, you go along to get along, but trying to find one's own personal voice and empowering kids to be able to say what's on their minds and what's in their hearts and what's weighing on them or what makes them excited and ecstatic. Is it hard to pull that out, or do you find that once that moment happens, the light bulb goes off and kabam, you got people writing all over the place?
So I would love to speak to a personal experience. I happen to be one of the coaches for the Get Lit Players program. It's GLPs where we audition a very dope. Well, we audition so many different talented people. It was around the Los Angeles area, but now, as Raul mentioned, it's worldwide. We audition different youth talent, and then those youth poets step in and then get to share their pieces and share how they write, share their ability to step into the Get Lit curriculum, and then show off how talented they are. And one of the students who actually started off in the Get Lit drop-in classes was talking about how they were blown away because a school writing assignment came up for writing poetry, and they felt limited because they had to write about the mundane. And they felt so open at the Get Lit space to come in and write about their authenticity and write about everything that's going on in their lives. So every time that I've seen people step into the space, it's never from a place of reservation. It's always from a place of abundance, always from a place of I got so much of my personal stuff that I want to share. You're telling me I'm not around my friends that are going to judge me. You're telling me I'm not around my parents that are going to say that I'm not allowed to say this. I can just do this thing. So witnessing that, I say that it's a lot easier to get students into that space when they come to the Get Lit environment.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and I'll jump on that briefly because that was a great example, Austin. It's tough, I think a lot of students or a lot of, since we're talking about teenagers, I think a lot of teenagers feel so much pressure from all areas, pressure to do well in school, pressure to be a good friend, pressure to be a good sibling, pressure to be a good human, to be outstanding, to be the fastest on the track, to be the smartest in the classroom, to be the funniest during lunch. There's so many things. And I think a lot of students get lost in what they really want. And because the world's telling them this is what you want. You should want to be exceptional. You should want to be amazing. You should want to be kind, all these things. And so what I found really, really comforting for me is that everyone has their voice. Not not even in a physical way. Everyone has their voice. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I should speak on. You have that voice. Unfortunately, and fortunately sometimes, that voice only gets stuck in your head. You have your thoughts. You are you in your head. And what poetry does is it allows you the comfortability in the space to finally get that voice or those voices in your head and get them out. Because once you get that voice out, oh, this is who I am. Now it's a tangible thing in the form of words, or it's more observable. Then you can be like, I like this about me. I want to change this about me. I want to develop this about me. So it already exists. Some voices, I will say, are more timid than others. That's understandable. But I think poetry just gives people the excuse, but an amazing excuse, to be confident in what they're thinking and what they're feeling. That's it. When you
come across teens who are having a little bit, because I imagine the first of like you said, I get to talk about the things I'm feeling and thinking and seeing and all that stuff. But it also probably comes with a lot of baggage sometimes. I know when I write poetry, the stuff that comes out is very therapeutic, but sometimes it can be quite dark. Sometimes, so how do you support kids in that process where they are exorcising, for lack of a better word?
Of course. Main thing is establishing I'm here to be a guide for you in your writing and performance process. But two, I'm also here as an adult in the situation. So I, as an adult, am going to acknowledge, share what you're comfortable sharing. Don't go beyond those things. If these are things that are causing you trauma, negativity, or things like that, then they can stay in the notebook and you just have those abilities. However, if you want to share something that you feel brave enough to share about your personal life in this space, this is a safe space. This is a space that's open to you dropping things, and you're not going to be judged in the process. So making sure those two things are differentiated. One between this is a no judgment space. Also, that being said, if this is too heavy for you to share, then there's no pressure for you to have to share. It can live in your notebook. And usually the youth are responsive to that type of energy.
Raul, when you were coming up through the program, can you describe what it was like when you first started and then as you got into it more?
That is a great question. I joined not knowing what Get Lit was. So I auditioned. And this was, like I said, it was 10 years ago. I auditioned, I rapped, I wrote a little bit of poetry. And my teacher, I had started a poetry organization at my high school, Alhambra High School, called AMPS, which is Alhambra Morris Poets Society. So I started that, and really it was just an excuse to rap battle or freestyle during lunch. And then it got bigger. People started joining. We did, events at school, things like that. And then the advisor for that club was... he said, hey, there's this organization, they're looking for poets. Like, I think it'd be cool for you to audition. So I said, all right, not knowing what the organization was called, not knowing who was in it, not knowing what they do, not knowing what they did. I just went. And fortunately I got in, and this is before Get Lit was big. So there was only so many people auditioning because they didn't know about this org. So, things might have been different if I auditioned with 40 people like we had this year audition for the Get Lit players. But I got in, and I was just completely grateful to have found this very underground but beautiful oasis, paradise. And I was like, oh my God, within the first month of joining the organization, I went to the White House. And I was just like, what? And this was during the Obama administration. I got to see Michelle Obama. I didn't get to see Obama. Barack, but I did see Michelle, the First Lady of Mexico. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to stick with this program. And I got to travel. Oh my God, I got to travel all over the place. I got to perform at high schools, and I was in high school at the time. So, I was a young kid. I was good looking, still am, but I was performing in front of a whole bunch of people, and people were praising me just from words and me being cool and swaggy. It was so dope, and really, really just amazing years of my life. Because I got to be me, which is very egotistical and narcissistic, but also be me in a way where my ego can be, filtered down into an art form, which is poetry, that then gets transferred or converted into inspiration to other people. And so it's how many ways can you like successfully do that? Like with your ego oftentimes is just, a lot of destruction or negativity, but it helped me, it fostered my own confidence, and it helped me eventually transition to being, cocky or arrogant, which I definitely was when I started off because I was just dope, into a person who really cared about other people's, feelings and going into education, which was an area that I hated. I hated education. I didn't like it. I just didn't like, I'd rather be outside. So it was, a lot of traveling, a lot of performing, a lot of meeting people, a lot of, claps and snaps. And so it was really a place to encourage me to keep going into this art form.
Yeah. You're hilarious too.
Yeah. I'm pretty ridiculous.
Don't do too much for his ego.
So funny. Watching the videos that I watched, the young women that I watched were so powerful, powerful. They were just commanding these young people on the stage. It was really something to watch, beautiful to watch. These people standing in such grace and power at such a young age. And I think, gosh, that's poetry in motion in and of itself. I'm in awe of the possibilities of words and where they can go.
Word. No, seriously. I wish stepping into Get Lit is feeling like I'm stepping into an environment, being involved in an environment that I wish that I had in my youth. Because as you mentioned, people would make fun of you for the idea of rhyming and doing that. Where I was from in Maryland, people get made fun of because you couldn't rhyme, and you had to figure out how to rhyme and how to make sure that you could talk about people in certain ways in these types of aspects. So after putting those pieces together and learning how to do this on my own, lo and behold, I go into different environments and go into different spaces, from freestyling to ciphering to rapping and recording and stuff. And then I step in to Get Lit, and it's like, wait, so this isn't, poetry doesn't have to be a form of a defense mechanism. It can be a form of expression. Poetry doesn't have to be a form of inward, just introspection. It can also be like me expressing myself and owning this podium that is myself, my presence and my voice. So the fact that there's a space that promotes that is amazing. And I wish more people had access to that, especially in their youth.
Well, it's coming. I mean, it sounds like y'all are growing exponentially, which is fantastic. And then we have young poet laureates, and we have things like Hamilton, where there's obviously in music now there's a lot of freestyling of conversational poetry that's happening and all of that. So it is becoming part of the zeitgeist, and I suppose. As you were saying, when we're young and kids are like, oh, that's weird. And now it's the norm.
I hope it's the norm. I don't think it's the norm yet. Because I think it's almost like this. It's almost like people know it's there, but for it to be widely accepted, I don't think it is. I think the poetry community, just because what the art form does is, it's very emotional. So if, express your emotions, that means vulnerability. If there's vulnerability, that means there's connection and relatability. So people are connected within these communities, and these communities are so strong and so loud that it may seem that it's covering the world. But I think to have a community of people speak loud enough to be heard, that's a great thing. But for a community of people to speak loud enough for other people to then want to speak to, that's where I don't necessarily, and I'm a very positive person, I don't think we're there yet. Because you can tell a young person all you want, hey, look at me, I'm speaking loud. Why can't you do that? But imagine being that person without the skill set, without the constant like motivation and encouragement. They're not going to do it. Being at home watching, we were in this, movie called Summertime, where a whole bunch of young people were saying poems. Like, I want a poet people to be like, oh my God, they're around my age. I want to be able to do that. But as soon as they step outside, it really depends on their next step and what their environment looks like. For them to like, hey, write a poem. Is there somebody telling them to write a poem? Is there somebody telling them not to write a poem? Like I feel like there's a lot of work to do, and you can definitely tell that with violence, that, gun violence. You can tell that with social media. Like, you can tell that there's going to be a huge battle between people, or it already exists, where there's people who are so conflated with, like, whether it's aggression, violence, sex, like whatever that is, to people who are like awareness, conscientiousness, like empathy. Like, that's the battle happening right now. And I think it's a lot easier to sell things that are pleasurable or things that are like cool than something that has historically been said not cool, which is poetry.
To piggyback off of that, yes. I'm a big proponent of the idea that if you really want to feel comfortable in your art form, get comfortable enough to a space that you don't have to do it in the gallery that is set up for your art form. And I think it's to Raul's point, though there is so many things that are going on. There's poetry happening for the inauguration. There's poetry that is being put all over billboards and everything like that. Yes, because these are environments that are tailored and honed in to give you the opportunity to accept poetry. But what happens when you're a performer in a space where no one cares about performance? That's still an unsafe space. So I think it's great to get people equipped and understanding of that idea that it's essentially a similar thing as the cipher community, or if you've ever gone on like a New York subway or a subway in LA and a person stands up and says, I'm going to perform for y'all right now. How do we get poetry to be so comfortable that it can be as solid as a person doing street performing? So I don't think we're there yet. I agree with Raul.
I think there's so many students out there who really need this, who don't know it exists. At least they don't know how accessible it can be just with yourself. And so I think that's the growth, or that's the level we want to get to, where everyone's just like, you know what, I have no one in my life right now, but I know poetry's great for that. So I'm gonna write. I think everyone at least hopefully can have access to like a pen and a paper. I know some individuals don't, but
Also, Raul, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it not unreal that we are able to like make a living? Not even make a living. Forget even make a living. We are able to exchange our emotions on paper for money. Like, I put my feelings and my thoughts onto a paper, onto a song, into a performance, and then people pay me to just continue to be my vulnerable self. Mm-hmm. Like, if more people had an understanding that that's even a possibility, like, it's unreal. It's unreal.
So how do you get the word out? What is the plan? Other than an occasional podcast.
I went to visit a school today. So I went to go see maybe 60 students, which is, not the biggest that I've ever, spoken to. But these are students I've never seen in my life before. I was visiting actually a school that's, has, uses the Get Lit curriculum, but the teacher is my high school teacher, my junior year high school teacher. And every year she hits me up and says, hey, because she knows how I speak and she knows how passionate I am about, this. And so she calls me, hey, I need you to speak to my kids. Like, they need to be woken up. They need to be made aware. They need to, get them out. And so I go every year and we visit so many classrooms. Antoine has 14 individuals, young poets who he mentors every Saturday. He has another 7 on Sunday. He visits people through the week, high schools, elementary schools, whether it's podcast, like we do this every week. We see old students, we see new students, and what we try to sell to them is not poetry. We try to sell them to them. Hey, like, I'm me because poetry showed me, and then I could do whatever I want. Then you're the same way. We have the same bodies. We have the same tools. But maybe you don't know how to use those tools. Here's a way you can use them, and that's we're in the front lines every day, and we love it. We love it. This is my calling to life is education and youth. So.
And
that's it.
And also the digital footprint of Get Lit is phenomenal. On YouTube, could you speak to the YouTube presence, Raul?
Yeah, GL Words Ignite is our YouTube page, and we have just so many.
Yeah, I watched some of those. Those are the ones I was talking about. They were fantastic.
They're just a fun one. It's almost like watching Netflix. You know, you just choose whatever and you get lost in it. But what you were saying, Austin, about the digital footprint.
Oh yeah, no, that's it. So like between the amount of classic slam view things that you can watch, the amount of youth poetry and check-ins that Get Lit has on the digital platforms, it's like, yeah, the young people, everything is being done to make sure young people are accessed, and once they are, then they can realize that they have a home in Get Lit.
Mm.
So you have outreach into schools and such, but what about the corners of the cities where maybe people don't come and talk to kids about poetry? How do you have outreach into maybe some more dangerous parts of town and things where people aren't getting that kind of feedback, or maybe the more impoverished parts of town where, as you said, Austin, maybe they can't afford a pen or a pencil, or, you know, do you do that, or is that something that's coming later once you grow more and get more of the word out?
Yeah, well, in those impoverished areas, there are schools. You know what I mean? And so if there's a school there, then there's an opening. And there's also community centers. Like, you know, we're not the first to try to reach those areas. You know, there's so many great organizations out there trying to do the same thing, just in different ways. And so, you know, we work with the LGBT Center a lot. We work with Turnaround Youth, which is TAY, which, you know, these are community centers where students, you know, they can get residencies there, where they can live there, where they can get food. Like, these are, you know, I'm trying to find right ways to say this and not be, you know, safe places for youth that don't have a lot of resources. And so we work with them too, you know, like we try to do events that are open to the public. You know, we have monthly open mics, we have monthly, you know, shows like at certain venues, like, and then those schools that, you know, don't test well, that have a whole bunch of substitutes because teachers are, you know, not wanting to come to school, where students are disappearing. Like, we go to those schools, and those schools, you know, you were talking about trauma, or like, you know, how do we react to students? Like, those are super like high pressured environments for students, but those are some of the most rewarding places to go to because they're the most needed.
When you take on students and everything and you start that, you keep talking about the Get Lit curriculum, does it involve teaching them about all these different voices, or is it pretty singularly focused on the pattern of words, or what is the curriculum like?
Yep. So it's a Get Lit curriculum. Every year we come out with the Get Lit anthology, and that's about 100 to 200 poems ranging from Walt Whitman, Edgar Allan Poe, Robert Frost, all the way to, you know, more contemporary artists, Ness Smith, who it is, Olivia Bass, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar. Like, it doesn't matter what time period they're from, it matters what they're saying and how they're saying it.
Quick insert to that as well is even people that have gone to the Get Lit program have ended up in the anthology. And so it's like it's literally a living anthology.
Yeah, and if you want to check out the anthology and look at the poems that we've had for the last 2 years, we have an online anthology now that is super great. It's called, just visit getlitanthology.org. There you go. Getlitanthology.org. You just click it, you find a poem. It's separated by themes or by poets, by literary devices, by time or by period it was written in. You click a poem, there's a bio of the poet. If there's a video of the poet performing, it's linked to there as well. Like this, we really, really encourage diversity in voice and diversity in narratives. And because our students are just that, are reflective of that. You know, we don't really reach any certain demographic, but youth, that's our demographic. And so, we definitely keep that in mind. And it becomes a natural thing because art is so, I think poetry maybe has had been conquered by a singular voice in the past. But I think, starting with the Beat generation and poets coming soon after that. And I know there was, people of color writing poems before then and people from certain communities before then, but it's we've really had an emergence of these voices, and Get Lit is just a mirror to that. It's really easy to be diverse when the art form that you do is diverse within itself.
Yeah, when I was in college, during one of the summers, I took a Chinese literature course, and it was the course was taught in Mandarin, which I don't speak Mandarin, but I followed along in English, and it was the poetry of dissidents who had been imprisoned and snuck their poetry out, and that class was life-changing. It was so beautiful to hear these words, or like The Butterfly, which is a musical piece by Charles Davidson, and all the poetry of the children from that were in camps in the Holocaust. That he set their poetry to music, and the storytelling, the historical storytelling, James Baldwin or Adrienne Rich, or there's just it's incredible, the richness that I get very excited about it. And that's really why when my friend Brad, who is friends with Get Lit, said you have to get these, these guys on the show.
Kopenick, I was like, yes, man, I love Kopenick. Yeah, that's my dude.
He's the best. He's such a sweetheart. And he's so impassioned about kids and learning. And, he's got the Shakespeare stuff and all that. And, but again, it's self-expression, but it's history. It's steeped in, there's so much information in the words, And I love that so much.
Well, and that's a hard thing too. Like when I was, younger, like you say the word history and learning, I think who cares? Legit, even you saying it now, I'm like, why would anyone care about history, right? Like what? Why? Not that I don't care. Obviously I do, but break it down, because that word I feel like is such an obstacle for so many students or for so many people to invest in, right? Like, because obviously you read, you understand your history, you're going to be better, right? But how do you translate that into a way where people will be like, oh, I want to do that? When I read, I transform, like I become bigger, I become greater. I get to not do their mistakes. I get to insert, but I think that's what's the great thing about the curriculum is, like, for people who don't really care about other people's stories and other people's stories, that's history, right? People who don't care about that, how do you get them excited about it? You like talking about yourself? You can do that. Read this person, and then you get to talk about yourself. Right. And that's where I think history, at least the way it's presented, we can do a better job in, is history is created by people in the present. You are a person in the present. You are history. Like that's kind of where, I don't know why I got so I get
what you're saying, for sure. Yeah. And of course, these days, the word history comes with all sorts of baggage, obviously, because certain people are writing the history and leaving out all the other voices. But I'm talking about the voices that are writing their own personal stories, that are, that are sneaking their words out, in the quiet of the night. And that's what I'm talking about.
After night. No, and I agree with you. And so not in any way trying to disagree, but like I hear information. I'll say, how do I say that in a way, or package that to get it to be exciting for somebody else?
No, I get that. And I remember being, in ninth grade history class going, Jesus, class is so boring. It's weird. There's becomes this moment in your life as an adult, or somewhere along the way, whatever being an adult means, where you suddenly want to know why everything is the way it is and how it was before, like the truth of it. And it's very hard to get to the truth of things because, again, there is only a handful of narrators, and that's the thing. It's like, but there's just these other voices have either been, their books have been burned or they've been ignored or whatever it is. So to get all those things out there, I'm a big fan of that.
And simply put, you eventually learn to love your vegetables. You hate them as a kid, but then as you get older, it's like, oh my goodness, I feel so much better when I get these vegetables in my system.
Where was the moment, the thing that set off Get Lit? Who was the brainchild, or who were the brainchildren who said, there's a thing here that we need to do? You talked a little bit about it starting, but you didn't really get into that.
Yeah. So
Diane Luby Lane.
Yeah, Diane Luby Lane, the founder and director of Get Lit. So Diane, went to NYU, dropped out, couldn't find her, place in education necessarily. But she always loved the words, and she was in her, she was a model, she was an actress, and she was taking an acting class, and her teacher, it made it a point to have their students like read and express poetry. And Diane got introduced to, Walt Whitman is a poet she'll always quote, and so she found these words and she found these stories that she can really like change her life with. And she wanted everyone else, she wanted to give everyone else that opportunity. So, she started going to schools like, before Get Lit was a thing, and before schools knew, oh, Get Lit's here, cool. It's like Diane's here from Get Lit, and so she had to really get herself in these schools, and it started as an after school program for some schools, and she found some students that were like her ride or dies, and like, and she started growing that little by little. And now, we've been in over 60 schools, I think, just in LAUSD. And so like it's the diligence and the vision of one woman from New Jersey. One woman, she said this, everyone needs to know this, and it's the reason why I'm here. It's the reason why Austin's particularly in here. But Austin was doing his, he had his own genesis somewhere else. But a lot of young people really have so much to be grateful to Diane for sure. She's the shit.
Austin, what were you doing before?
Artistry. I'm still a musician, performing artist, touring artist, things along those lines.
At the Guinness Book of World Records for longest freestyle. You forgot to say that.
What?
Yeah, I set the record for 16 and a half hours of freestyle rapping.
Nonstop.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
And now I teach workshops on how to freestyle.
Boom.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was
great things too.
Raul's also here. No, yeah, but I think on the real, like stepping into that's what made stepping into this environment interesting, is because beforehand I didn't know what I was doing was poetry. I was out here. If you ever watched Power Rangers, that's a very old reference, but the Power Rangers, there's the Green Ranger who was like, oh, is he a Power Ranger? Isn't he? And then eventually became clear that he was a Power Ranger. It's like I was doing freestyle and I was doing music, I was doing rapping and performances and writing and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, what does this hone into being? And then I stepped into Get Lit and it's like, Green Ranger. Got it. That's what this is. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So are y'all willing to do a poem by any chance? Either of you? Both of you?
Down. I'll do a poem.
Cool.
The look of terror.
I'll do a poem. It's a longer poem though. It's like 3 minutes. So this poem, I'll just show you what we do at Get Lit. And so we do the classic and response model, right? So the classic poem is a poem they choose from the Get Lit anthology. They memorize it, they analyze it, they internalize it, they perform it. And then they write a response to that classic poem. And so that response is not a book report. It's not a summary. It's none of that. It's whatever your response was to that classic poem. If it reminded you of your dad, you write a poem about your dad. If it reminded you of a specific memory, you write write on that memory. And then, you get better and better at it. You start making more connections. Like you use similar language, you use similar imagery. So that connection is so visible and so beautiful to watch when the same poet does a classic poem and then does the response poem to make, one beautiful cohesive piece. And so my classic poem that I chose, that I love, is by this poet by the name of Hafiz. He's a Persian poet from the 1300s. And his classic poem is called Dropping Keys. And it goes, the small man builds cages for everyone he knows, while the sage who ducks his head when the moon is low keeps dropping keys all night long for the beautiful, for the rowdy prisoners, right? So I read that poem and I'm just like, what the so sick, right? Because this guy's dope. He's going in that night and he's not even setting people free. He has the keys to set people free. And he says, here is your key. I'm not going to open it up. You're right there. You can open it up yourself. It's just right there. Do it yourself. And so people have the option to free themselves. And I think freedom is a lot more valuable when it's kind of like that, you know? And so I wrote a response poem to it. I might not do the whole thing, but I wrote a response poem to it. And I love it. So it goes, 4 blue moons and a high tide school ago, I was locked behind English bars, waiting for someone to let me out. I wanted to drop out. Mind in a drought, I couldn't handle being home. Heart was broken, mouth was swollen, no feelings shown. Since the time of preschool, I was thrown what to say, how to feel, how to live still in a chair, in a room, in a nightmare of textbooks and study guides to nowhere. And if I went to college, who would I know there? We keep dropping, so I keep dropping keys. At the age of 14, I found my verbal morphine. Hip hop helped me walk out. How I got out? Poetry. Pay attention. I got some tools for you to use. I learned to write so I can write my future. Learn to read great works so I can work at being great. These poems, is how I got free. We keep dropping, so I keep dropping keys. There's more to that poem, but if you want to find it, please visit my site. I'm just kidding, I don't have a site. But you can go to Get
so
Lit.
Beautiful.
Drop Out. It's called Drop Out. The rest of the poems on the Get Lit YouTube page. But just talking about my experience with being in school. You know, I hated being in classrooms, and now that's what I do for a living. And so, poem's kind of a testament to that.
It's beautiful. And I'll put links for everything on the Hey Human podcast links page too. Austin, do you have one?
I do. Also, I highly recommend checking out Raul's piece called Clouds that is on, it's on the Get Lit Universe page. I don't know if that is open to the public yet, but yeah, that's something to check out.
Coming soon.
Cool. It's the Marvel movie trailer that's coming through. But I have a piece called... I guess Broken Artist is the title of this. It's a piece that I wrote when I was trying to figure out my way as an artist and my way as a creative. And here we go. I sat on the metro with my eyes closed, thinking how time flows, wishing just for a moment everything in my life slowed down. Something about reality is hard to swallow. Feel like I just paid my bills, but rent is due tomorrow. I told 1 million lies, and it's going to be 1,000,001. That I'm only making music for fun. I got a view of the funds. Man, it's better than walking dogs. It's better than parking cars. It's better than mopping floors. I'll tell you with a straight face, I don't want to be famous. I'm already having trouble just remembering faces. I moved across the country to this city by myself. No moms, no pops, because they never here to help. How you judging? How you struggling? How you working on your budget? Until you walking in my shoes, you ain't really saying nothing. Perception's all about the lens you're looking in. You think you straight with someone, they turn out to be your crooked friends. My year has had 2 weddings, 2 funerals, 2 graduations. My sister had twins whose second birthdays the other day. That's too many twos to view in life's phases. The crazy thing is that it becomes more basic as we're aging. And a lot of times I wonder, do we enjoy the days or do we become annually number? Do we learn from the pain or do we never recover? Do we deal with our own crap? Or do we get a plumber? A man can only wonder. I lost track of being on track. I thought that substances could solve that. I was wrong, though. And every story is supposed to have a happy ending. I write songs, though. That's my piece.
Beautiful. God, y'all. So good. Now, are there local shows or of this that y'all come together and do stuff locally, or does every city have something that, I suppose all that's on the website, but I imagine that there are performances, yeah?
Yeah, but we have our monthly virtual open mics. Austin, you need to start curating shows again because I want to perform. Okay. But there's a couple of different places outside of Get Lit where you can go to. The Poetry Lounge is a great. It's the biggest poetry venue in Los Angeles. But like I said, we have the open mics. This month we have Get Lit at the Promenade, which is on 3rd Street in downtown Santa Monica. We have our own stage. Our Get Lit player is going to be there. Austin's going to be there. I'm going to be there.
Wait, what day is that? When is that?
It's going to be November 20th, I believe. It's the third Saturday of this month.
Okay,
we have them every month, but this is the last Saturday that we're doing that. And also, too, are you, Susan, based in Los Angeles?
I am.
Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you a form. So we have a screening of our movie. Have you seen Summertime, Susan?
I have not.
So we have a free screening of Summertime on November 14th. So next Sunday. And it's going to be from 5:30 to 6:30 on Sunday. We're going to have a pre-show at Universal AMC. So it's the AMC Theater at Universal. And
I will be there.
Yeah, I'll send you the form so you can get your tickets. They're free. Parkings are free too. And it's going to be so many students there. So we're really trying to get a whole bunch of students from the Get Lit program to be at this event. AMC so graciously donated the space to us, so we're able to give it back to our community members. That's going to be the 14th, but the 20th, 18th is the open mic. It's a virtual open mic. You can find it on our website, getlit.org. And then the 20th is going to be Get Lit at the Promenade, but you can also, find ways to, get more information on our website as well.
And the open mic isn't limited to youth. Like, if you got a piece that you want to share, Susan.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, me working out mom stuff. So.
Yeah.
Whatever. But the Promenade is, that's my new neighborhood. So I'm excited. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Y'all are
great. Be a housewarming party. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. A poetry housewarming party would be the best. Tell people how to find you individually aside from Get Lit, because like I said, I do a links page and I put all this stuff on there so that people can find you and find your work and all that as well.
You can follow me on Instagram at RightAwayRaul. That's WRI. You can find me. I'm Austin Antoine. You can find me on all social medias at Austin the Antoine. Last name spelled Antoine. You can also find me on streaming platforms. I released an EP that has landed in so many different things as of recently, between commercials and films. So I highly recommend checking it out. Austin the Antoine, and on streaming platforms it's just Austin Antoine, Antoine. Great.
And Raul?
You can just find me on Instagram or on the streets. But on Instagram it's right, like WRITE _away AWAY _Raul RAUL. I post nothing but poetry on that page, whether it's me performing or me just writing stuff down. So it'd be awesome if y'all checked it out.
Perfect. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening. Words are power and awesome. So if you're listening and you have that little tiny bug or itch to put something down on paper, do it.
Yeah, it'll change your life just the way it changed mine.
Yeah.
And mine.
Raul and Austin, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
And I'll see you all on the 14th, on the 20th. Have a wonderful night. Thanks, y'all. And thank you for listening, everybody. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Bye.
Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks. Bye.